going on, everybody? It's your boy Hoop Jogging back with another video. And as you always know, I got to get right with my theme music. Shout out to Coach Proud. Let's go ahead and get right, man. We got a special one in tune for you guys, man. I got my guy Antone Sewell, man. He needs no introduction. So let's get that music popping real quick. All right, man. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. And so, in lieu of the HBCU season just ending, you know, I want to bring up a guy who's gonna talk that football talk, because I know in these streets in the intermediate place there are a lot of discussion that goes on, and it's all over the place. But I want an actual football guy, a GUI, to come up here and talk. And so shout out to Godzilla, man. Said my man Tone. Yeah, Tone about to come and talk that ish like only Tone can do. Without further ado, Tone, what's up, man?
What's up, Mr. Hoop Jogging? You know, every time I come on here, I want to call you Cliff, but you know, I respect the glow up for sure. So,
man, by all means, man, you got to know me by Cliff, man. It's all good, man. There's few that know me by my real name.
Hey, man, we got to get a Morgan State and a Bowie State flag on that background, man. I see you got the and your SFA on there.
Man, go send it to me, man. I'll rock it, man.
I got you. Shoot me your address. I have it to you before the next time I come on.
Big bet. All right, appreciate that.
No doubt.
So, Coach, man, talk to me, man. We just finished up another HBCU season. You guys finished up on the Meac. I know I got a lot of SWAC listeners as well. Let's just talk about. Man, let's just dive into it.
Go ahead.
You pulled a DeAndre Jordan. You came to Alabama State, and then you won at Alabama State. Talk to the people, man. Just tell a little bit how you ended up being at Morgan State when Alabama State was the first destination.
I mean, first and foremost, it's nothing but love and respect on my end for Coach Eddie Robinson Jr. and the entire Alabama State staff, you know, administration, campus community, everybody. You know, I was welcomed with open arms when I took the job at Alabama State. I know I talked to you shortly after that, and you know, I was very excited about the opportunity to get back in the SWAC and you know, get back down there to the deep South and you know, be able to kind of test my mettle against you know, against everything that was going on in the SWAC at that time. And but when the opportunity presented itself, when you know, some dominoes started to fall and some things started to fall in place as far as Coach Wilson getting the job here at Morgan. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately it wasn't as difficult as most people would think, because my family was the main thing that led me to come back home. You know, my lady and my son, you know, just being away from them, and you know, even though I was able to you know, take advantage of the opportunity to get a Division I coordinator job, and like I said, get back in the SWAC with everything that was going on and all the light that was being shined on the SWAC at that time. You know, I ultimately had to make a decision of, you know, putting others in front of myself. And you know, it didn't hurt that I was able to come back home and coach with a guy that I'm very familiar with, that I've had a lot of success with, that we work well together, and you know, take on a challenge of trying to restore yet another program, which is something that, you know, Coach Wilson and I have been a part of for quite a while right now.
Fair enough, man. I appreciate your candor with that, and shout out to my guy Doc Holland did HBCU Overdrive, man. Y'all go subscribe to his channel. Great content over there with HBCU football and sports in general. But yeah, I mean, you know, things change, man. Again, it just was. I seen people were saying it in more of a how can I put it, scandalous standpoint. And I know you, man. Like I know you a long time, man. Yeah. We go back to what, 2009-ish?
Nah, man, that might have been. When did you first come to PV?
I graduated.
I got there in 2005, so you must have been like a sophomore, junior on a team at the time when I first got there.
It's 2005. All right, we go back to 2005. Yeah. So I knew, I was like, nah, I know Sewell ain't that kind of cat, man. So I'm glad you cleaned that up, because I know that there was a lot of conjecture out there about why you switched. Everybody knew you went to follow Coach, but under what terms, though? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and I respect it. I saw a lot of it, and surprising to most people, probably because I know I engage the fans a lot. I got a little KD in me when it comes to engaging people on social media, but it's all in fun to me. I don't take any of it personal. And a lot of times I'm doing other things and just kind of going back and forth and, not really being thrown off from what I'm doing at the time. But I saw it, I saw some people have some podcasts and some think pieces about some things. But ultimately, it was more of a personal decision versus professional. And those guys down there at Alabama State, I talk to those guys all the time. I developed some great relationships with some guys on the staff in a short period of time there. And I was glad to see that they promoted Ryan Lewis, who was one of my assistants during my time there. Good, very, very good young coach that I met there. And he and I clicked early on. So when the opportunity came for me to leave, I definitely supported and endorsed Coach Robinson. Promoting him to the coordinator position. He did a great job there. So I think it worked out. I think it worked out well for everybody in the
end. Agreed. And it's just and I know some of the content creators you're speaking about, but we don't talk about the content creators over here. We just keep it hoop jargon. Yeah. But yeah, it's just stuff. I don't like to be doing stuff like that. I like to talk to the person if I can, if I'm a contact away, to know the real story. Yeah. Instead of come up with my own plan in my mind, as it were. But with that being said, and shout out to Kevin Pryor, man. Solid brother. Giving a shout out to the threads. Appreciate you. Shout out to Nico, man. That's my guy as well, man. Kevin says Morgan State needs to come back to New York once a year again. Hey, now I don't know about the East Coast stuff, man. So let's talk a little bit about the program of how, what's different about Morgan State and Bowie, man, and where your tentacles reaching. Do y'all have the East Coast, New York roots? So I'll let you have the floor, man. Just tell me what y'all got cooking in Morgan State. I know this year didn't go as good as y'all may have wanted. But you just tell me where y'all going and how y'all looking going forward.
And to be honest, man, when when you're in it, I would agree with you throughout the season. Like, things didn't go as well as we would have liked for them to. But when you really sit back and really just kind of look at everything, just kind of take a snapshot of everything, I think we had a pretty successful season. When you look at it, we were, we took over a program in June, essentially. Our last coach wasn't hired on our staff until mid-July. We were able to win 4 games and, ended up 4-7. But out of those 7 losses, 3 of them came by a total of 13 points. 2 came on literally the last play of the game. One was a last-second field goal. One was a touchdown score with 5 seconds left in the game. And then we lost to Towson, who's our crosstown rival and a member of the CAA, which is, probably one of, if not the best conference in all of FCS football. We lost to those guys by a touchdown. And this same Morgan program lost to Towson 31-0 in 2021. So I think we did some really, really good things, man. We finished the season #1 in the country in defensive touchdowns. We actually finished in the top half of the country in every defensive category. So I think that we did some really good things. As someone just mentioned, I think we've taken that momentum and put together a really, really good recruiting class in this early signing period. We were able to sign 19 guys, and that's without having any spring recruiting, without attending any camps this summer. So that's really a testament to our coaches and the reach and connection that we have as a coaching staff. When you look at our coaching staff, we got a lot of guys from a lot of different places, man. Most people just say, hey, y'all brought the whole staff from Bowie, but we do have 5 guys that work on our staff at some point at Bowie, but we also have some guys that came from some other places, and those guys were able to kind of utilize their connections and reach out to get some kids from some different places. And we've done really, really well. And we've done really, really well in the transfer portal. I'll be just being honest. We have a lot of talent from right here in the DMV that goes off to other colleges. And when guys aren't whether or not they're just not having the success they hope they had, or things aren't working out for them off the field, in the classroom, whatever the case may be, that's one thing that we are doing similar to what we did at Bowie is we've always made sure that the coaches in the area know, hey, if you got kids that go away and things aren't working out for them, they have a home here with us at Morgan. So we've done well with with getting quite a few, we're getting quite a few guys coming back home already. We have, like I said, we signed 19 out of those 19. 12 of those guys are going to be enrolled in spring with us. So so we're gonna have a different look even in spring ball, and then we're gonna probably sign another few players in this in the second signing period in February. So we're not, trust me, like we're not sitting around licking our wounds. We're not sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves. We doubled our win total, and looking to hopefully do the same thing in 2023.
I like that, and here's why I always like having you as a guest. You gonna take the sports way and spin it positively and give facts behind it. And I say that because we talked about who a year ago we said who was the real black football champion, and you made your case of wow, Bowie was that over Jackson, that over South Carolina State, and you laid your thesis out with actual data.
Yeah.
And like you said, on inception of 4-7 season, most people are like, that's a horrible season. But what you laid out is that you guys didn't lose big games. The margin of failure was low. And you're coming to a program that you just took over. And ladies and gentlemen, for y'all listening, to take over a program in June, you gotta hit the ground running for a fall, a fall start for football. That's crazy. That's crazy to start that way. Oh, and speaking of that way, it seems like y'all took that Bowie way in trying to reinvigorate that in Morgan State. So I got a question for you. Since we're talking about bringing, the transfers, y'all got 19 guys in. I had KJ Black on the stream a few months ago, and he talked about having too many transfers can possibly be a burden with continuity and what have you. And in particular, we asked that because of Coach Maynard, what he had going on at Alabama A&M, and it didn't quite work out. And KJ said that before time, with no dog in the fight, because he's a Rams coach now for football. I'm sorry, for NFL. What do you do to make guys, when you got that many guys coming in, to have them buy in? What's your strategy to do that?
First off, man, shout out to KJ. That's my guy. KJ is responsible for my first collegiate championship ring, at Prairie View A&M when he was our quarterback. And I'll say this, man, to each his own, because we have, I know as people, especially as sports fans, critics, coaches, whatever, we have somewhat of a recency bias, and we can say Coach Maynard didn't have great success bringing in all those transfers, but just 10 years ago, Coach Maynard was playing for a Division II national championship, bringing in a lot of transfers as well. So, it's one of those things where sometimes you hit, it's one of those things where sometimes you hit and sometimes you miss. But what I'll say with us, one of the things that we do is we don't recruit blindly, for lack of a better word. We get transfers that we have relationships with. And what I mean by that is it's kids that we either recruited in high school, kids that we know their high school coaches, kids that are coming from programs where we know coaches, or most importantly, and this is one that I think is really, really underrated. Most of the guys that we bring in transfer wise are guys that are familiar with the players that we have on our team already. So like it means a lot, or like we'll put more stock in the guy. Let's say if a kid calls and say, "Hey coach, hey my boy Cliff, coming from Maryland or whatever the case may be, and man, we played together in high school. Y'all should take a look at him." That means a lot to me because we know that our players are going to protect what we're building. So for the most part, they're not going to try to bring guys in that are going to throw off the chemistry and disrupt what we're working towards. So we don't really just go out and say, "Oh, hey, I seen the kids highlight film. This kid, he's a baller. We don't know anything about him. Nobody knows him. Nobody knows his history or anything. But we're gonna try to bring him into our program." Now there are some times where you just see a kid and you kind of go in sight unseen, but even then there's a process to that, calling them, FaceTiming, doing your background checks, getting him and his family up on the visit and everything. So you still kind of get to know him a little bit, but we are very careful about, just kind of bringing in guys from any and everywhere, and just kind of hoping that they mix. Like I said, we try our best to make sure that the guys we're bringing in, they kind of fit our profile and the image that we want to have for our program.
I like that answer because, again, when we talk about what a coach has done, a program does, a lot of stuff gets lost in lack of nuance. And because what we kind of see is a lot of cut and paste. Like, oh, well, this happened here, then that happened there. Like, not necessarily, and I'm glad I didn't know that, but Coach Manning at D2 level with a lot of transfers won with that approach. So I appreciate you imparting that upon us. So now we know. So next time that conversation piece comes up, we can talk about that. And shout out to John Horst, man. He says, please become the next football head coach at Central State. So let me ask this. Let me take a hard left turn. What are your head coach aspirations, man?
That's funny. They actually turned me down for the head coaching job a few years back. I'm not gonna say when, because I don't want to, I don't want to put anybody on the spotlight in terms of who got the job. But I'll just say a few years back, quite a while ago, I actually had some interest in that head coaching job, and they turned me down. I ended up winning about 3 championships after that. So, things kind of work out, how they do for a reason. But at the time, man, like, just being completely transparent, that used to be something I was chasing. I used to be, really, really eager to try to be a head coach. And, ironically enough, my fiance is a head coach. And she would always tell me, like, are you sure you want to be a head coach? And she would always say, hey, I'm going to support you in whatever you want to do, but are you sure you want to be a head coach? And I never understood what she meant, but the more time I spend around her, and like, I'll see her up doing all this administrative stuff and all that. Like, I'm a ball coach, and I think I can and will be a good head coach at some point in my career if that's what God has in store for me. But until then, I want to continue to try to build the best defense I can build, and continue to try to, to try to affect the young men in the, in the way that I have been. And even going back to the, to the first question in terms of leaving Alabama State and coming to Morgan, one of the things was, being with Coach Robinson and him, us kind of getting to know each other. I totally understood that, I didn't have the same freedom and the same free reign that I have under Coach Wilson, because, I tell people all the time, I got the job at Alabama State based on what I could potentially do there. And Coach Wilson hired me based on what I had already produced, working with him. So I've essentially been the head coach of the defense wherever I've been with Coach Wilson for the last, 10 or 12 years. So, he gives me, pretty much full autonomy to do whatever needs to be done and make decisions with defensively, whether it's staff, personnel, whatever the case may be. The only thing that I don't have autonomy on is the money. He still decides, what, who gets what from a financial standpoint. But other than that, he's giving me the assistant head coaching title here at Morgan, and I'm happy where I am right now, and I'm looking to try to continue to build Morgan State up to what I know it can be.
Yeah, and I know that to be so, but again, I like to hear you articulate it in that fashion. So, because the guy me and you know mutually, Talvin Hester, for example. Talvin got his first. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Talvin. I don't think anybody in this world would say they don't like Talvin Hester. Everybody likes Talvin. Right. Talvin got his first coaching job at Louisiana Tech this year, so now he's finally a head coach. And something I've always talked to Talvin about was, when you gonna be a head coach? And he was like, I ain't ready. At some points he was saying that, man, it's a lot to go with head coaching. So it seemed like you kind of getting that same stride, because you are roughly close to Talvin's age.
Yeah.
And so, people are gonna start asking you when you're successful. Like, on defensive side, everybody know Antone Sewell. That's the guy. Like, it was a good narrative going on you before the season started. Was like, man, I'll play for him. They showed how you was teaching guys defensive principles and things of that nature. Oh, you did like a combine, right?
No, it was at the Legacy Bowl.
Legacy Bowl.
Yeah, I was shocked that thing kind of went. I don't know if it went viral. I don't know how many people got to look at it for it to be viral, but it was viral to me. I mean, I saw it.
It was
viral. Yeah, it was. And the ironic part about that, Cliff, honestly, is they had me. I was really hesitant because I had never coached defensive line before. I understood defensive line principles because that's a major part of my success defensively. But I had never been hands-on, one-on-one with defensive linemen before, and having the opportunity to get down there and get around all those great players and the great coaches from some of the different HBCUs that were in attendance. It was eye-opening for me, and it was a new challenge at that time in my career. But once we got on the field and I saw the way those guys were locked into what I was saying, I knew I had to give them my best. So even prior to going down there, I reached out to a lot of defensive line coaches that I knew, watched some YouTube videos and those kind of things. And, once I got in front of them, it was just like, hey, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And one of the things I didn't try to do, I didn't try to act like I knew what I didn't know. I told them what I knew. And one of the things that I feel like I've always been good at is just being detail oriented when it comes to teaching. I've always worked. I've always had more success as a player and even as a student under teachers or coaches that are very, very detail oriented and give you all the little things. I know sometimes we try to just jump right into it, but I'm the type of guy where even being down there with those guys were all essentially auditioning for the NFL at that time. And I was coaching those guys like they were freshmen in college.
Yeah.
That's kind of always been my approach. Just like, hey, I read a book. I don't remember what book it was, but it was talking about John Wooden. And it mentioned that every year, the first thing he would do was teach his guys how to put their socks on. Like every year, to start practice off. And it seemed crazy when I first read it, but then I thought about it. It's like, hey, I'm not going to, I know we're returning most of a team that has won 2 or 3 championships in a row, but I'm not going to assume you guys know how to do anything.
There you go.
So, I was fortunate again, just to, I didn't know that the cameras were around, but, I'm glad that they were able to kind of catch me in my natural element and for people to see that, because a lot of times that, we get the beef that HBCU coaches can't coach or, we're not this or we're not that. And, I can tell you, not even just myself, but there's a lot of talent in the HBCU coaching world.
I like that because I was going to go a whole different way, but with you saying that, I'm going to go a different way. But I'm going to start off with this. What you're saying is like, you don't have to fake it till you make it per se. You learn the basics and those are translatable. Because the overarching point of playing defense. The line may not be your specialty, but you took it upon yourself to ask people who know that. And that's, it's almost like for the listening audience, to coach, you got to constantly be a student of the game. You constantly have to reevaluate how you know the whole thing. And then these younger players, they got a different mentality. You got to constantly evolve who you are and not just go off of, oh, yeah, when I did it, when I played, yeah, I knew this. That's cool, but can you convey that to a 18 to 22, 23, 24-year-old? That's what really matters. And secondly, let me get a comment, then I'll translate to what you let me pivot to what you're saying. Saying Nico Sunglee got the personality and real qualities, not just a coaching robot. No. One thing, Sewell ain't no damn robot. Absolutely. Let me ask this question, then I'm gonna go and pivot to your statement you said. I thought that was very poignant. Kevin says, how good is Elijah Williams? Jersey kid making waves for the Bears. Are you familiar with that kid?
Man, am I familiar with him? He's a dog. He's the cornerstone of our defense. I've made it very clear to him since the season has been over, like we are going to build our defense around you. Like anybody that you see coming in this door from this point going forward, it's going to be to complement what we already have in you. And that's not to say that we don't have a lot of good players on our defense, but he is definitely the he's the straw that stirs the drink for us for sure. You know, he's a guy that played a lot of different positions for Morgan prior to us getting here. He was a sophomore this year during his redshirt freshman year. They had him moving all over the field, playing linebacker, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, defensive end. He would drop into coverage and so on and so forth. And I remember when I first came and Coach O, our corners coach, he was like, Coach, like, man, like Elijah was a guy that had, like he had the most interceptions out of anybody in the spring. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay. So, like I respect Coach Omar Smith. That's my corners coach. He was the one coach we kept from the previous staff. But when Elijah walked in the door, I looked at him and I told him right then, I said, hey, you're going to play defensive end for us. Because I watched him run around and I looked at his body type and I said, you know what? In our system, he's going to be most productive for us as a defensive end. Our linebackers are more speed guys, like more fast and explosive versus just being, big, strong, downhill, that old school like you're playing against the Nebraska Power I type of linebackers where you got to run downhill and have a neck roll on and bang into people all the time. And our D-line coach Fauntleroy, to his credit, I got a special guest for you. But our D-line coach Fauntleroy, he told Elijah, he said, man, I think you're gonna be a 10-sack guy for us this year. And this was before the kid ever played a down for us at defensive end. And I think he finished with like 19, maybe like 20 tackles for loss and like 9 or 10 sacks on the season. And it was clear that he fit, like, regardless of who we played. Even when we played Georgia Southern, who was the FBS team that just played in the bowl game. We played North Carolina Central, who just won the Celebration Bowl. I think Elijah may have had 2 sacks and like 4 tackles for loss against North Carolina Central. So it was one of those deals where, like, the bigger the game, the more he shined, and you could really see that he has the potential to go really, really far in this thing if he if he just continues to work out. I know he's going to get better because of the kind of kid he is.
Okay, and that kind of answers what Kevin also asked what his ceiling is. So you see a lot of potential in there. I thought he was saying the Bears, like Chicago Bears. So my apologies in that capacity. Not being informed.
Listen, maybe one day he will be playing for the Chicago Bears. I would love to see that.
Okay, yeah. So my apologies there. So Clyde Marshall says, "Hello, Coach, my frat brother Omega Psi Phi."
I'm not an Omega.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
That's one of the biggest.
I think he was Greek.
That's one of the biggest assumptions people make, and I think because I've coached, so I tell them all the time, like I'm like what was that, Poetic Justice, where they walked up to the cookout and to the family and pretended they were family. That's my relationship with the Omegas, because I work for Coach Frazier, I work for John Morgan, I work for Eddie Robinson, I work for Damon Wilson, and they're all Omegas. So people just assume. I had people send me DMs on Instagram like Happy Founders Day. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not in no fraternity.
I got a partner who is very much so. I'm an alpha for y'all who don't know. Most of y'all know. But I got a partner who's not an Omega, but he kind of exudes that type of spirit. And he had a person charge him, with the charge that they have. I won't share it over the air, obviously. But I mean, sometimes you just ruminate in that spirit, man, and people peg you where they peg you.
Hey, I tell them all the time. I go to the plots and eat chicken on homecoming, so that's about as close as I come, though.
Yeah, that's what's up. And shout out to Meac Mike, man. Meac Mike always hold it down for the Meac and these SWAC portals. He's a Morgan State alumnus and supporter. So good to see Meac Mike in the building. Y'all hit that like button, man. Listen, man, we got a guy, a busy man, who's gonna give y'all some real game on this channel, man. So I mean, that's worth a like at least. Come on, y'all. Hit that like button. TT says Baltimore a tough area to get them recruits to come home. Well, and I like that question because you've always been an advocate for getting DMV area kids, to Bowie. So I'll let you take that question over. How is it to do that?
Man, I tell people all the time, like here's one thing I know. And I'm not going to talk bad about any other school. Like that's not how I recruit. Like that's not how I am as a man. Like that's one of the things I tell people all the time is like, man, I don't pretend. I don't any praise, any praise, any accolades I've received. They have not been self-proclaimed. They haven't been, I don't give myself now. Every now and then I'll talk my talk and say, hey, I'm that guy, or I'm this, I'm that. But like for the most part, I let other people talk about me. And like as a man, like how I was raised, like you don't step on another man and try to get to where you're going. So I would never talk bad about another school or area or anything. But what I know is there is a you cannot deny like crime rates and those kind of things, reputation. It is what it is, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's anywhere else. But as you probably know, outside of a few, Prairie View, Bowie, a couple other schools, most HBCUs are in urban areas.
Yes.
Most HBCUs are in what people would call the hood, ghetto, whatever you want to, whatever word you want, whatever term you want to use to describe it. It's just Baltimore's turn, unfortunately, to be spotlighted in terms of what's going on negatively. But I think that when people step onto our campus, anybody who has ever been to Morgan State and been to our campus, their jaws drop when they step onto the campus, because we have one of the most beautiful campuses I've seen. And the community surrounding the campus it's a lot of single family homes, middle class families, and those kind of things. Now you may go 5 or 10 minutes one way or 5 or 10 minutes the other way and be in somewhat of a rough neighborhood, but our students are somewhat insulated from all the quote unquote bad things that people have to say about Baltimore. And there's another FCS university that's about 10 to 15 minutes away from Morgan State, and they do pretty well for themselves. They actually played in the FCS National Championship within the last decade. So I tell people all the time, like, are you comfortable sending your kids across town, but not sending them here? Like, in terms of hanging out in places that they go to socialize as college students, they're gonna be in the same places.
Yeah.
They're gonna be in the same places, and Morgan is not a place where strangers just come on the campus. Like, the only time you really get outsiders on our campus is when something is going on, an event, a concert, game, or something like that. And even then, it's like, man, it's HBCU like any other HBCU. For the most part, it's love. It's a family. It's like a big family reunion most of the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you addressing that, because now I'm about to pivot once again. People were saying that about Jackson State with Coach Prime, about the negative stuff that's on campus, which is true. I mean, if you've been on around an HBCU campus enough, me personally with Prairie View, it's just a lot of I call it NIG stuff going on. It is what it is. But at the same time, it's like it's the company you keep. If you hang around clowns, you get clown results. If you hang around good people, generally speaking, you don't get none of that, in your lap, or what have you. So with that being said, I'm glad that you landed out there, because, something that people might say about Morgan State, they won't say about the other FCS university. And it's like, it's the same general area. So what are we really talking about? So I think that it's important to get that word out, in a situation like that. And I see Meac Mike saying Rob Brower is one of the best coaches I've ever seen. He took North Carolina A&T from Ashley Class. He won the CIAA, SWAC, and Meac championships with ease. No debate here. It's since we talking about football in general, as far as HBCU football. Now, the guys who represent you with North Carolina Central went on and took down the dragon that is Jackson State. That will make the second year in a row that the MEAC has done that to the SWAC. I mean, you have coached in the SWAC. You know the culture. You know everything. With that, why do you see that happen?
Oh man, this is a tough question. But I'll say this: I tweeted before the game that it's no sugarcoating. Like North Carolina Central took us out, took us to the woodshed.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw that. Yeah, they beat the hell out
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, 6 touchdowns.
If this is an in-person interview, I might walk out the studio right now. But I'm in the comfort of my own basement. I'll continue. But like when I watched them play, I watched them beat up on New Hampshire, who was a team that was ranked top 20, top 25 during the regular season at the time when they played them, and they were just right at you. It wasn't a whole lot of trickeration. Now they did run a couple trick plays on Jacksonville. For the most part, it was
a fake punt.
I mean, it was any third and less than 3 or 4. You knew 11 was catching the ball, and the running back was going to lead, and he was coming downhill, and then O lineman was going to lay heavy. And I think it's just contrasting styles. And it's funny because Grambling is the one team that from the SWAC that has won the Celebration Bowl, and at the time, Grambling wasn't a smash mouth team per se, but Grambling was a physical, in your face type of football team. I think that the SWAC has always been kind of throw it around and kind of light the scoreboard up and flashy and about the style as much as the substance. I think being in the Meac, one of the things that I've seen is it's more substance than style. Like you may not get all the 40-point games and so on and so forth, but you're gonna get some physical games. You're gonna get some intense games. And again, that's not to say that you don't get that in the SWAC, but you don't get it as much. When your top teams play against each other in the SWAC, you get those kind of knockdown, drag out games. But when you talk about the top versus the bottom, sometimes you get some 40, 50-point blowouts. So I think that, and another thing, and again, this is just my personal opinion, because the MEAC only has 6 teams right now, we're forced to play 6 out-of-conference games every year. And for us, again, in my humble opinion, the CAA is one of, if not the best conference in FCS football. And all of the teams in the MEAC play CAA teams throughout the year. Like I think we play 4 next year. We played 3 this past year. So it's like you're testing yourself against the best competition. And that's not to say the SWAC isn't a tough conference to play in every single week. But you see the same style of teams almost every week in the SWAC. Whereas though in the MEAC, we can go from seeing like we played Georgia Southern week 1. Georgia Southern may have led the country in passing. And then we turned around and played Towson, who Towson ran the ball 45 times against us. And then we played Sacred Heart, who was a running team. Then we turn around and we play Delaware, who was a passing team. Who's a playoff team. So it's like we get to test ourselves against a lot of different styles of football throughout the year. So by the time we get to the end of the season, you really
everything.
Right. Your identity is solidified and it's tried and true against different styles of football.
Yeah, and that's kind of like why a lot of big programs, quote unquote. So I always try to relate to basketball because that's my expertise level. So one thing I don't do is try to get on these streams and lie like I know something I don't know. But what I do know in basketball realm is a lot of programs will go and try to, they play SWAC schools, they'll play Southland schools and what have you. So they'll see a different look because what we've seen is a lot of Power 5 or big schools when they go into the tournament and you playing against a team that runs small ball, you ain't seen it all year and you're gonna get exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember many of teams and shout out to the legend Ben Joe at Southern beat Georgia Tech because they just had a play style that you wasn't ready for. Bro, I've seen Southern University give Duke all they wanted, and Duke barely won when they had what's that ugly dude, man? Kenneth Parker's baby. Williams. That's what we do, man. It is what it is.
You must got a crush on. You must have had a crush on Candace Parker back in the day.
Oh yeah, I think everybody did. 6'4", two face. I mean, come on now. You know, you don't see a lot in WNBA. Just saying. But you saw Southern get him everything they wanted, man. And this we had the cat Peter Cipriano. I mean, he was on that team, and Coach Bobby was the coach at the time. Like, you can get caught off guard. So smart teams, you play everything because now you got real footage. Now, not only is it like game applied knowledge, now you got film you can go to, direct film you can go to and break down your deficiencies. And that makes you a better team. So yeah, now what you're saying again, now we get into the minutia of being, you know, coaching and playing. When you see all this other stuff, man, it's just different. It's just different. And I gotta give Meac Mike a lot of credit. Meac Mike, he called spot on. Meac Mike be in these SWAC streets and he talk about how great, you know, the Meac is as far as being superior. He said it. He said that the trench work too. So I want you to speak on that. You think that trench work is one of the things that separates the Meac and the SWAC?
It's so tough to say that because and I'm gonna be real. I'm not gonna make no excuse about it. I'm not a guy that you play with who's on the field. I know that Jackson State was missing quite a few guys up front defensively, but I think the difference is now when you talk about continuity. I think that's where it shows the most is in your offensive line. And North Carolina Central's offensive line, they had guys that have been playing together for quite a few years, and you can just tell. Like, you can tell, like, them and their quarterback have been playing together quite a few years, and you could tell that those guys were on one page. Like, when you talk about offensive lines, you cannot have guys playing on different levels. You can't have guys that you know whose footwork isn't synchronized. Like, offensive linemen really have to be on the same page at all times. Absolutely. And I think that North Carolina Central showed that this year. In the previous year, I mean, Jackson State hadn't seen, like, I think that the SWAC had a lot of speed. I don't think that they had seen a receiver like Shaq Davis before they played South Carolina State in that Celebration Bowl, and you know, he kind of gave those guys a little bit of problems. So again, I think it's he
didn't kind of do nothing. He gave them problems.
yeah, he a baller. I mean, he only had one catch against us this year, but he a baller. He a baller for sure. But so again, I'm not gonna sit here and say, because I'll say this. Being at Alabama State in the spring, we had a D line that was very, very good. Like, they got a couple guys on that D line down there that are going to have a chance to play on Sundays. I mean, big, pretty athletic jokers that can probably play for most Power 5 teams in the country. So I don't think you can say the Meac has this and the SWAC doesn't have that. I think it's just a matter of, it's like when you. It's like, you know, like, all right, like, we all grew up in neighborhoods. You know, when you're in your neighborhood, you know, you fight against your homeboys and you play basketball against your homeboys and so on and so forth. And then it's not until you get to high school where you start to bring people from different neighborhoods in, and you realize, hey, I might get 30 in my neighborhood, but now I got to change my game a little bit when I got to go against, you know, see these guys. I know you were a H-Town guy. You know what I'm saying? North Side H-Town guy. You know, it might be a little different when you go and play against some guys from the South Side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
even from a psychological standpoint, I'll tell you. I mean, I'll just keep it real. When I played in the SWAC, I remember, you know, I had like some really good preseason games. We played Paul Quinn, University of Louisville, Oregon State. I had good games. Our first game was against Alcorn State. It was just different. I was just like. It was different. Like, I was just like, damn, like, this ain't what I've been used to, you know, experiencing. And that does lead to different things, and again, we're going back into that trench work. We're going back to the minutia of how these games actually play out on the field and on the court. It's different. I don't know how I can explain it. It's just different. You go play in Mississippi Valley, in Urbana, Mississippi, where you have no business being there, but to play sports, it's just different over there. I can't explain it to you.
Yeah, I said with the brown water.
Oh yeah, it's exactly. Bro, those things affect the actual game. They just do. I can't explain it to you how, so it just does. When you play in a bigger arena, what they call it, depth perception, that changes sometimes. It changes. So let's say Jackson played Carolina Central at they state. They may have beat their ass. Who knows? Right. It's different, man. When you in certain venues, in certain situations, it does affect the product. It affects the end result. And so
and we still talking about it, and we still talking about a game that went into overtime. We not, and that's why I'm careful to say whether Meac this or the SWAC that. Like, it's not like they beat him by 50.
Because Sewell, at the end of the day, Buddy dropped a walk-in touchdown. And shout out to the brother Hagler. He dropped a walk-in touchdown. And we talking about a game that went in double overtime. I
mean, and now on the flip side, like no disrespect to any of the teams that we play, any of the quarterbacks that we played in the Meac, but I don't think North Carolina Central had ever seen anybody like Shedeur Sanders. Like, just being real, because I think that their quarterback was the best quarterback in our conference this year, and Howard's quarterback was probably the second best quarterback in our conference this year. But neither one of those guys were the pure passer that Shedeur is. So I think he gave them some problems as well, because I don't think that was something that they had seen at any point this season. So, man, it was a fun game to watch, man. I enjoyed it. I literally sat here and watched it all the way up until the last play. And I can say that, I mean, Meac, SWAC aside, I was proud to be an HBCU alum and coach and everything else that I've been associated with HBCUs. I was proud to see what was displayed on ABC. Like, we weren't on ESPN3 or some streaming service that you can download and watch on Wi-Fi. I mean, we were on the main channel, and both of those teams put on a show. And I think it showed the world that, hey, like we got kids that can really, really play football at a high level at our universities.
Absolutely. And let me say this, man. If y'all ain't hit the like button, y'all tripping, man. I got a guy here. Again, these HBCU streams, it be all over the place sometimes. I got a guy here who's sitting here breaking this game down to you, who does this for a living at a reputable university, who actually Morgan State had interest in me when I was an undergrad in high school. I ain't know nothing about Morgan State because I'm from the South. But listen, man, this is a guy who giving y'all that game. So, man, if the like button ain't in your repertoire right now, you big tripping. Hit the like button. Secondly, I'm glad you said that about Shedeur, because I lived on stream today. Shout out to my guy Between the Game Sports, my high school teammate in real life. He played at Stephen F. Austin after I played at Stephen F. Austin.
That's your partner that's normally on here with you, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, me and him been down since we were 8 years old. People were saying that Shedeur Sanders not a SWAC legend or a SWAC great. I'm like, if you see the quarterback play, well, let me just say this. From the D coordinator standpoint, I don't want to put no words in your mouth. What do you see when you see Shedeur Sanders?
He has a great grasp of what they're doing offensively. I can tell that because of how fast he gets the ball out of his hands. And you watch him sometimes when, like, I see people bringing pressure and he's throwing the ball right where it's supposed to go versus those looks. So you can tell that the kid, he's a football guy. Like, you can tell that. You can tell he studies the game. You can tell he understands the game because he's making smart plays. And I think that's what he doesn't get enough credit for. I think he gets a lot of credit for what he is athletically. And I think that he shows that he has a high football IQ. I think he'll be successful moving forward just because that's going to translate wherever you are. And people will say, oh, well, he's going to see more complex schemes and so on and so forth. And I don't necessarily agree with that because I can tell you right now, like, I'll let the cat out of the bag. Ain't a whole lot you can do defensively. You playing man, or you playing man, you playing zone, or you playing some type of fire zone. Like, that's really all it is defensively. And once he figured out what Central was doing, like, he started to carve him up a little bit. And I got a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Core, the D coordinator at North Carolina Central. Like he's a guy that does a great job. He was over at North Carolina A&T. He was doing a great job when he was there. So I think that North Carolina Central threw some good things at him. If you go back and watch the now infamous Alabama State game, when the he ain't SWAC game as is known as now. I think that the part I hated about that whole thing is, man, they put so much attention on what happened between Eddie and Dion after the game that people ignore. Like, that was a hell of a football game.
Yeah.
Like I said, my guy Ryan, he did a lot. He threw a lot of different looks at Shedeur and Jackson's offense, and he had those guys flustered at times. But then you watch the kid after getting hit and not being accurate and not being in a great rhythm. You watch the kid throw 2 absolute dimes against all-out blitzes, which dropped right in the receiver's hands, and it just showed me like, damn, like, all right, like this dude got it. And I put respect on his name because he sat up there at the SWAC teleconference, man, the SWAC preseason conference 2 years ago, I think, and he talked this talk. He sounded like his dad talking about, those guys were there because they chose to be. So people were like, oh man, they're gonna kill him in the SWAC. And man, dude ain't do nothing but go like 18 and 19 and 0 in the SWAC in 2 years and throw for
lost a game in the SWAC.
Yeah. So it's like again, I give credit where it's due, and I think the way he went out, man, listening to that kid talk at the press conference after the game, man, nothing but love and respect for him, and wish him the best moving forward. I was hoping I got a chance to line up against him, though. I'm gonna be real with you about that. I was definitely, I ain't gonna lie, I was licking my chops a little bit because I want to measure myself against the best. So
that's real.
But like I said, much respect for Shedeur and what he showed. He showed me a lot over these last 2 years.
And I want to hear from your mouth, from an actual defensive coordinator, because we got a lot of Monday morning defensive coordinators, out here on YouTube. So I want to get it from an actual, Division I defensive coordinator of what you see in Shedeur, because I literally was on a stream today talking about his impact and what he did. So I get it. I'm a basketball guy. So most people, you want to marginalize me, cool. I got a guy who you can't trump. So I wanted to hear out your mouth, and I was going to accept anything you had to say, because we didn't talk about this pre-show. So I appreciate either way. Yeah. So from that game, from the listening public, from the Who is SWAC, I want to hit it one time.
Who is SWAC? If I ain't SWAC. Who is SWAC? If I ain't SWAC. Who is SWAC? Baby, who is?
It's the funniest thing in the world, man. Nothing can top that.
It was funny, man. My phone, it was our homecoming as well at Morgan, and man, my phone was blowing up that day and the next day. Like, man, you see your boy Eddie, and I'm like, what happened? And when I watched it, all I could do was laugh because, man, I saw both sides of it. Like, I really, really saw both sides of it. Like, come on, Cliff, we all been in the heat of the battle, man. Like, and I ain't saying what the guys from Alabama State did was right, but I mean, it's kind of in there at your own risk when you walking down another team's sideline, especially in the rivalry like that in the SWAC. Like, come on, bro. Like, and I know when I was down there, man, you might have said it to me once as well. Like, everybody was, man, you ain't got no SWAC hours. Everybody know that. So I think it was blown. I think it was blown out of proportion a little bit, but you got to know Dion. You got to know Dion, and Dion is going to take anything and spin it into a promotional deal. You know that. So it was Dion. Yeah. So it was like on both ends. But what I will say is, I don't think people. I think people took Dion's side in the sense of, we all love Dion. Like, I wore 21. I called myself Prime Tone when I played football because I thought I was Deion Sanders. So I'm not. Nobody can ever say, "Oh, are you hating on Deion Sanders?" I got a daggone tattoo on my arm because of what I thought about Deion Sanders as a player. But I don't think that people really did their research and really realized that, like, what Eddie was saying, I felt where he was coming from. When you talking about a dude that was 2-time SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, made it to the league as a second-round draft pick straight out the SWAC, and has done a lot for Alabama State's program and the SWAC overall prior to him taking that job. So when he ran off the names, he ran off and talked about somebody being SWAC or not being SWAC, I felt where he was coming from, but I also knew that it was gonna give Deion some ammo. And man, watching him stand in front of Veterans Memorial Stadium dancing to the song, man, I'm like, man, listen, like you said, Deion gonna Deion. So, but I think all in all, man, it was good because it brought more, more quote unquote exposure to HBCUs and HBCU football now, and again, like, it was good that Jackson and Central played the game that they played on national TV, because everybody was watching, and you and I both know half the people in the country were watching to see a good game, and half the people in the country were watching hoping that it was a poorly played game and a lot of turnovers and a lot of mistakes, so they could say, see, we told y'all HBCU football wasn't this, and this, and
it delivered, and
we made them eat crow. So
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. Now I'll say this too. Now, I look at what Coach Eddie Robinson said with two schools of thought. First off, there are people who say, Coach Prime is a grifter. Cool. But I do know what he got done at Jackson, in my opinion. I want to speak for you. You ain't got to comment on it. He got shit done over there. It is what it is. And so, by some people's logic, nobody's SWAC if you're not pure SWAC for 4 years. This is, man, something I covered very much. They say most improved player, Clifford Franks, Prairie View, A&M University, Sports Banquet, 2006, 2007. I had this everywhere I'm at the forefront. I covered this because I love my time playing basketball for Prairie View. And by some people's logic, I went to JUCO for 2 years. I went to Stephen F. Austin. You see right there on my little banner right here. So I only played 2 years in SWAC. So by some people's logic, I ain't SWAC. Right. And I don't like that. To me, that shit's goofy. Yeah. So go ahead.
No, and listen, and I get it. And again, it's one of those things where, like, I think I was on I was talking on something the other day. Like SWAC fans and alums, they're fanatics. Like, they show up and show out for their schools, and they don't think that. Like, we used to, when I was at Prairie View, I used to call it the United States of Texas. Because you tell people from Texas, like, I used to tell them all the time, like, won't y'all just secede and just start your own country? Because
we've done it before.
Because you can't tell people from Texas that y'all are not the best and everything in Texas is not better than everything else in the world. And that's how people in the SWAC are. People in the SWAC believe that they have the best of everything, the best games, the best tailgates, the best fans, the best baseball, the best soccer, the best everything. You can't tell them that they don't have anything. But I love it because when they with you, they with you.
Yes.
Like, they are with you as evidenced by you see how those stadiums were packed out. Like, we went to play when I was at Prairie View. We played in California, which there are no HBCUs in California. And we played A&T 1 year, Morehouse another year.
Morehouse.
And it was 60,000 people in the LA Coliseum. And a lot of them were Prairie View alums. We played in the Cotton Bowl every year, 70,000 in the Cotton Bowl every year. 40,000-50,000 against in Reliance Stadium against TSU. Like, they love you, but you also know you also know that once they hate you, they hate you. So it's like, it's kind of what you get. It's kind of what you sign up for when you go to the SWAC. It's kind of what you sign up for when you go to the SWAC. But I'll tell you this, as a coach and a competitor, I loved it, man. I loved it. I love nothing more than walking across the field after that game, and looking at those fans' faces and those teams' faces
Facts.
when they couldn't believe that they lost a little old Prairie.
Facts.
And it made it even better. We were a bunch of East Coast dudes, and man, y'all don't know no football up there. We would come down there, and we were just, for our last 3 years, I think we lost maybe two games in the SWAC, and it was such a good feeling. I had a couple of my homeboys came down, and one of my homeboys was like, bruh, like this lady was cussing y'all in the stand. She was like my grandmother age, and I'm like, dog, that's how it is. I think we were playing Southern maybe, and I'm like, dog, like. That's how it is in the SWAC, man. Like they die hard about theirs and about their teams. I saw somebody say it's goofy. It's really not, man. It's one of those things where, like, if you when you really get to talk to and meet people from the South, especially, they think that they feel like they didn't welcome us with open arms when we first came down there, because they assumed that because we were East Coast guys, per se, that we were going to be, snooty and we were going to to look down on them. But man, we were coming down there, trying to build something. And once they realized we were good and we built a bond, man, like Kenyatta called me last night. For those of me, some of you people know him as Dr. Cavell.
Had on show last week.
Yeah, he called me last night, man, just to say what's up and see how I was doing, see how my family was doing, and tell me, he was proud of me and so on and so forth. And so it's one of those things where, man, like you can't love it when they on your side and then hate it when they against you. Yeah. Like you gotta take the bad with the good.
Yeah. I love you shout out Kenyatta, because I had Kenyatta on my show. We did a pregame show for the Celebration Bowl, and it's beautiful to have guys who've been invested into this HBCU sports, realm, and speak on HBCU sports, because you know how it is, bro. Like a lot of people, it's like they went from a lifetime of marginalizing it to now like it's at the forefront, and it's funny because everybody want to see it now. Everybody want to talk about it now. You see big entities like Fox Sports 1 talk about HBCU football now and things of that nature, when people like you and myself, man, this has been our life for a while. No, damn a while, for a long time. So it's funny to see how the landscape has kind of changed. So I'm glad Kenyatta reached out to you, man, because that's a dude I respect on so many levels. But I would say this now, from the goofiness standpoint, I would say, because some people try to say what is SWAC and what ain't. Listen, man. My opinion only. Take what you will with it. If you put in work in the SWAC, if you produced, you're SWAC. And if you produced on a high level, you're SWAC. And I'll give an example. My guy, Darnell UJ, he played 2 years in the SWAC. He was SWAC Player of the Year and almost won it twice. So by some people's logic, because he played at Blinn and another school before that, he only played 2 years. Some people would say he ain't SWAC. No, Darnell UJ is SWAC. He was one of the best athletes. Go ahead.
I bet some of them dudes he dunked on won't say he ain't SWAC. I remember him.
Facts.
Yeah.
Go look at Darnell. Don't go dunk on. Excuse my French, y'all. Go look at him dunk on motherfuckers. That is one of the most athletic, and I'm proud to call my friend. Him dunking on motherfuckers from what's that? Cincinnati, UCLA, Baylor, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, so on and so forward. He was
what, he had like 30 against UCLA?
Yeah, he put up 30 apiece on them with Drew Holiday and Collison on that team.
I remember we were all out there, all the football coaches. We were at Buffalo Wild Wings watching it, and like I said, it was. But so KJ ain't SWAC then, in some people's logic.
By that logic, KJ Black ain't in his face.
And to be real with you, if we really being real, the SWAC has always flourished off of FBS bounce backs.
Tavares Jackson not SWAC by that logic.
Yeah. Like, come on now, like he was an Auburn transfer.
Arkansas,
yes, I'm sorry. The running back for Alabama State that played in the league for a minute was an Auburn transfer. I can't think of his name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. He was Isaiah Crowell.
Okay, yeah.
Isaiah Crowell transferred from Auburn and played running back at Alabama State and got drafted. So it's like, man, you're not going to have. I get it, but it's like it's almost like, again, like we've all been a part of teams. It's almost like when you have guys that come in, they come in and they didn't play at your school the whole time, but if they come in and help you win the championship, man, that's your teammate. Like they are part of it. They are a part of that school and a part of that team history forever. You can't take that away from them. You can't take that away from them. And again, like I said, I felt, I know that Eddie was upset and everything about how some things went on. And I called him after that. I called him. I gave him a couple weeks. I said, "Hey man, I'm just calling to make sure I'm good. Just make sure I'm still SWAC." And we laughed about it. But at the same time, Alabama State they got T-shirts printed that say "I am SWAC" and all that. So a lot of good came out of it. And at the end of the day, it's regardless of who's there, I guarantee you that game, that Alabama State Jackson State game, is going to be on ESPN next year. I guarantee that, and I guarantee a lot of people who probably wouldn't have tuned in before going to be tuned in to watch that game just to see how it goes. So, yeah. So I mean, like I said, I think that we take everything personal. I was telling somebody yesterday, like, man, like we are, as HBCUs, we're really like family. Like we fight, like we'll beat each other up in the house all day long. But nobody else can't come in our house and try to fight us. Like we're gonna all band together and fight against them. So but it's like I said, it was fun. It was fun to see. People were like, man, man, what you did if you were there? Like, man, I can't think about no hypotheticals like that. But I know we had our issues with a few teams and staffs when I was at Prairie View, because again, we were the new guys. We were the East Coast guys, and they were going to try to quote unquote bully us, and they learned quickly, like, no man, we're not going like that.
And check it, people was having problems with who y'all was recruiting.
Right.
Not only Houston people.
Right.
And I was rocking with y'all. You, I think, Heish, Roy Jones, Brian, like I was rocking what y'all had going. Like, I mean, y'all just went on the other side of the world. It ain't had nothing to do with what I knew, but y'all was winning and y'all was cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was cool on my part, from the outside looking in, because Rim was winning at the time. It was good times at Prairie View when y'all was winning and Rim was winning. It was good times, man. You know how it was in that little temporary building, man. Like,
no doubt. Coop was there with us. Of course, he was winning. Yeah.
Cooper was winning, bro. Like it was good times in Prairie View. That's when the AD was winning the what they call it, the Commissioner's Cup.
Yeah,
bro. Like it was good times, and it's because
look at where he is now. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing. Like everybody benefited from it, but what I learned
now,
what I learned from being there at that time is, like, because I mean, like at first we hated him, like me and Mike especially, me and Coach Brown, we were young guys, and we were man, like, who these people think they are, this and this, but we had to learn. We're like, you know what, we're gonna shut up and just show them. We're going to shut up and show them that, you know what, this is what we about. This is why they brought us here. And once we start winning, like, man, they love us. They loved us. Like when we all went back for the Hall of Fame ceremony a few years ago, and man, everybody was, wanting to take pictures. They gave us tours of the new facility and all those kind of things. And, what we did is forever etched in Prairie View's history. And somebody can give us their opinion on what we are, what we aren't. But if you go to the SWAC history books, we in there. Yeah, so
I love it, bro, and so I want to crystallize it, and land the plane with the sentiment we saying. So by some of y'all's logic, James Houston, he ain't SWAC. James Houston has come into, he graduated from University of Florida, went to Jackson State for a year, did his thing. This dude has more sacks than Aiden Hutchinson, who is the franchise guy for the Lions. As a pass rusher, I mean, with the numbers up, James Houston is the more productive player as far as impactful defensive stats, quote unquote. So by some people logic, he ain't SWAC.
You know what, Cliff? And you may I know we got some people here. I know we got some people logged on here that you know, in or around the DMV. It's like this. And shout out to all I was born in DC, spent my first 8-9 years of my life living in DC before we moved to PG County, which is literally where I went to high school with, we could walk, and a 5-minute walk we were in DC. But because we went to school in Maryland, DC people were, oh, y'all Maryland this, Maryland that. Like, people from DC always talk about people from Maryland trying to claim DC. and they want to separate us until KD go drop 50 on somebody. and then they want to claim KD. But KD will tell you right now, I'm from PG County.
Yeah.
But it's close enough when it's, you know, when it's beneficial to you. So
hey, I say shout out to the Green Line, man. If y'all know the metro system out there, shout out to the Green Line, man. That's PG County.
Yeah.
Shout out to, man, when I went to so man, here's why I rock with Sewell. I don't care what Sewell does on no job, on no situation. Back when my show wasn't nothing, it just was a YouTube. I'm sorry, it was a Facebook-based content thing. I went to New Jersey for a show, and then it was close to the girl I was dealing with at the time. She was in DC. I came out to Bowie to come see my boy. And listen, man, that area is so intimate. Like, you know, from a black perspective, man, it's just when you're there, you feel it. And I appreciated being there. When I went to Bowie campus, I had no expectation. When I went there, I'm like, it felt like home. It felt like home going to Bowie. And I appreciate Sewell, who always, you know, mess with what I do. You know, now, you know, my YouTube channel, you know, it's pretty nice. But before, when I didn't do YouTube back then, I just did Facebook. It's just like amongst friends watching me talk about Sewell. And it's like, bro, it's like that though. It's like that. And it's just good to see where you come from, bro, of where you at now. Because a lot of people just kind of come into space and they just say anything, talk about whatever. But I seen where you've ascended from and where you are now. And I'm proud as hell of you, man. I just am, man. So it's good to see, man. And it's crazy to see as far as the totality of the whole thing, man. So I want to just say, you know, to you, bro.
I appreciate it.
Proud of where you are, bro.
I appreciate that for sure, man. I appreciate that for sure. It's man, it's a blessing to me. You know, I know you said you don't speak about other what you call them, content creators and whatnot, but I know how you feel about some people. But man, I try not to turn down any opportunity to speak about myself and our program, and because I think it's important that, you know, like somebody said earlier, that people don't see us as just robots, or people see us, you know, outside of the Twitter pages and Instagram and Facebook pages. People see us as actual people, you know, and get to hear us express ourselves. And, you know, like, one of the funny things is, like, you'll hear people say, "Oh man, like you speak so well. Like how did you expect me to speak?" You know, like, because I'm an HBCU football coach, did you expect me to be? I mean, I know I stutter a little bit, but that's something I've done since I was born. But I mean, I know how to enunciate my words and put sentences together and so on and so forth. So, man, I think it's always important that you know, we take opportunities to showcase what we're about and who we are and what we are as a program. And that's wherever I am, man. I mean, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ride hard for whatever organization I'm associated with at that time. You know, Bowie is always going to be my heart, because that's where I got my that was my first really introduction to HBCUs. You know, like nobody in my family went to college, but I'm sorry, I had two female cousins that went to college, but I wasn't. They're much older than me, so I wasn't like going up on the yard and hanging out with them and all those kind of things. So when I got to Bowie, you know, I was that was my first introductions to everything that's going on from a HBCU standpoint, and I fell in love with it at that time. You know, so I think it's important that, you know, I'm going to always, you know, I get myself in trouble a lot of times because my head coach always call me like, hey man, what you say on Twitter yesterday? Somebody called me about what you said on Twitter yesterday. I tell them all the time, like, coach, I ain't disrespecting nobody, but I'm gonna ride for what I believe in and who I'm with. And that's never gonna change. And you know what I'm saying? So as far as you and our relationship, like you said, man, we've been good since day one. Yeah. And you know, for me, like I would never, no matter where I am or what I'm doing, man, I'm never gonna get too big to come on here and chop it up with you, because it's like having a conversation with my homeboy, which I mean it literally is having a conversation with my homeboy. But man, anything I can do to try to help grow your space, man, I'm all for it.
I appreciate that, man, and because man, I remember like our inception, man, bro, like kind of knowing each other a little bit, but being two coaches at Prairie View. I remember so if y'all know Coach Sewell, he used to have like long dreads, and he did like the funniest karaoke doing the song "I Don't Give a." It was the funniest thing I've seen in my life, bro. And I don't even know what year, maybe 2010.
Nah, I think I cut my dreads in like 09, so it had to be like 07, 08. I remember we were listen Friday night at Scott Gertis,
Cypress, Texas.
Yeah, yep.
Oh yeah, I know Tone from like when I didn't know him, but we was in the same circles. Yeah. And then we got cool. So now you doing your thing. It's like from my perspective, it's wonderful to observe, man. Beautiful, man. So I'm always rocking with what you got rocking. And so again, with the situation where you left Alabama State, I'm gonna give you benefit of doubt. I'm not gonna put no stuff out about anything speculatory. I'm gonna ask you first, like, oh, yo, what happened? Someone put that out. So I appreciate the fact that you are who you are and you do what you do, because it's important, man. Because like listen, man, all these players, all these coaches, they're people. you go out and it's all these sideline stories and all that, and I know you don't want to have a big thing with the Coach Prime situation because you're a young man, like you had your own career,
right?
You are who you are, like you a defensive coordinator, crying loud. But it's good to have this discussion in an open forum, in the sense that I want to give you perspective to people. You ain't got to agree with me. You ain't got to agree with my takes. But I hope y'all appreciate the fact that I like a guy like Tone to come in and say what he says, speak who he is. Like, this is everything to me.
Yeah. And I think, man, like, again, like, people got to understand, man, we men. Like, we're men. We're naturally competitive. I'm not about to come on here and be, oh, man, Coach Prime this, Coach Prime that. Man, line it down. Like, let's go head up and get after it. And after the game, like, it'll be all respect and love. But man, like, you want to talk about who did what, man? I've had success in every conference, every HBCU conference except the Meac. I just got here right now. Like, I was at Fort Valley for 1 year. We were what, 8-3. I was at Bowie. We won 3 championships. I was at Prairie View. We won the championship and won 9 games in back-to-back seasons, which hadn't been done before or since at Prairie View. So understand when I say, like, man, I ain't trying to keep talking about what another man did. Like, my resume speaks for itself. Now people can say, oh, well, you didn't have the cultural impact that Coach Prime had. That's not what I set out to do. I took these jobs to win football games and help young men get their degree and become productive in society. I had one of my players text me today, like, man, coach, man, like, man, I'm chilling, whatever I'm doing great. I say, I asked him, I said, hey man, like, how you doing as far as your adult life, like how you making an adjustment? He was like, Coach, man, I learned from y'all early on, man. Like, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. I just gotta be able to adapt and adjust. And this is a kid that was a 3-year all-conference player for me at Bowie, and we don't even talk about football no more at this point.
Yeah.
You know, like when we see each other at a football event or at a football game, we talk about football, but it's about life right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so maybe on the surface, I haven't had the type of impact that, you know, Coach Prime or Eddie George or Hugh Jackson or some of these bigger names have. But I guarantee you, if you survey the guys that I've coached over my career, they're gonna tell you that their life was affected in a positive way by being in my presence. And the same for me. My life was affected in a positive way by being in those guys' presence. And we won a lot of football games. You know what I'm saying? Like we ain't out here just raising great young men and getting our butts kicked. Like we were teaching lessons through football, but we was handing out a lot of L's in the process. So again, if you know when people want to talk about that, like I got some of my homeboys from our group chat, they chimed in and they'll tell you every day I'm like, bro, like, can we talk about something else at some point? Like, I love y'all to death, but can we? And they like, man, it's clear you don't mess with. I'm like, man, how can anybody say I dislike a guy who I modeled my whole football persona after? Like literally, you know. But at the same time, man, he's his own man. He's his own man. He made decisions that's for him and his family. I'm out here trying to get what I can get for me and mine. You understand what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that people know the Antone Sewell story, the Damon Wilson story, the Morgan State story, the Bowie State story, and so on and so forth. Because when you really dig into it, man, I saw somebody talk about Coach Broadway. Shout out to Coach Broadway, probably one of the greatest HBCU coaches ever. But when you look at the numbers of what we've done as a coaching staff over the past 5 or 6 years, it's really like in line with some of these guys who we call the GOATs and the greatest and the pace setters, or the guy that the guys that set the standard. Man, we right there with those guys. So let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you want to, that's why I say whenever you want to talk, I'm willing to come on here and talk. And I hope that people know more about myself and more about our program and about our university whenever we finish having our conversations.
Beautifully stated, man. And again, I love these conversations because it gives you the whole totality of what this landscape is as HBCU football. With the people who encapsulate or enrapture these jobs, bro, like these are real people, and I love your real perspective on that. And let me give Meac Mike his announcement. He says, Brayshaw about to get ready for work. Can coach let the coach?
Let's get
let's get the Meac time 2 years. I've been waiting since 2014. Okay, so you got a challenge, Sewell.
I'm down.
Yeah, since you put some on it, I'm gonna give you what you get over here.
Who is SWAC, baby?
Who is SWAC?
Yeah, I'm with it, man. And that's what we came in. We didn't come here to do anything but win a championship. I ain't making no guarantee it's gonna happen this year or next year, but that's why we coach. That's why we coach. We coach to, again, we want our guys to graduate, be productive, but we want those guys to leave with two things. Anybody that plays for us for 3 and 4 years, it's two things we want them to have, and that's a degree and a championship. It's like Tom Izzo a few years ago. I saw the craziest stat, man. It was like, it blew my mind, and it said Tom Izzo had a streak where like 6 or 7 straight, and I may have the number wrong, but I know it was like a certain amount of recruiting classes consecutive that played for him had all played in at least one Final Four. And it was crazy to me because it was like, man, that's like consistency.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like consistency, and that's what we're trying to continue to maintain. We just want to show that, you know, we can take our formula and we can now duplicate that formula. And people will say, you know, like I heard you say earlier, like, you know, hey, like, you know, it's the Bowie State formula. Nah, it's our formula. You know, it's our formula, and we just want to show that wherever we are, we can duplicate that formula and get the same or similar results. And I know it's not gonna be easy, man. There's some great teams, some great coaches in the Meac, and you know, but like I said, I'm excited for the challenge for sure.
I love that, man, and I in the my perspective here. I like the fact that you are pre-owning your own Morgan State thing now. I mean, Bowie is in you. Bowie would never leave you. Bowie is Antone Sewell. What I told people on the stream earlier, and shout out to my guy Between Game Sports. Listen, when you go to the situation with Colorado with Coach Prime, you're gonna have a coaching tree. This is gonna be a thing. You're gonna have coaches, you know, TC Taylor doing his thing out there. You know, Jackson like recruiting his ass off right now. Y'all know TC is doing his thing at Jackson State right now, recruiting. You got guys, you retaining guys. You got, you know, who my favorite player is Quaydarius Davis from Dallas, receiver. You know, he's staying in the program, but you're still there. You have an opportunity where, like, that's my train of thought. I'm sorry. You got a guy like, you know, the guys who are coming back, Savion Wilkerson. And it's going to lead to a good program.
Savion Wilkerson is from Maryland, by the way, but go ahead.
Yes, he went to Delaware State and was killing at Delaware State. Yes.
So we play a little football up here, but go ahead.
Yeah, no. Hey, respect for DMV. Respect. It says Savion gets all respect, you know, from coming from the DMV, staying at Jackson State. That's going to be a great program. And so I'm looking forward to, like, just watching where it's going to be. And again, so we talk about the Nick Saban coaching tree. We talk about the Bill Belichick coaching tree. It's going to be a Deion Sanders coaching tree. And I think some people may be a little short-sighted with the vision because you want Prime to stay at Jackson State forever. He didn't. Cool. But watch what his coaching tree does. Watch what TC does. TC going to do his damn thing at Jackson State. I'm telling you right now. He's going to do his damn thing. So I'm looking forward to Jackson being good. I'm looking forward to the SWAC in general being good. Like you said, bro, we watched the game. It was a great football game. Like, if I remove my SWAC loyalty, it was good. Like that game was amazing. Mm-hmm. It was an amazing football game. So if we look forward, the SWAC is in good hands. And we talked about Charles McClellan, my former athletic director. The SWAC is in good hands, man. And so with the Meac, man, and I want you to come in and step in because the Meac, again, only 6 teams. But you guys are still in the standpoint of, you saw what Jack State was supposed to be the unbeatable team. Y'all did that. You're a guy who coached in SWAC. You're a guy who was in the CIAA. You are a Bowie State guy. You know everything as far as HBCU football sports is concerned. And I think it's just so important to you to give your perspective so people can understand what this landscape looks like. So with that being said, we're about an hour and 30 minutes in. Give me your just, land the plane perspective of what's going on, man, of what you see as the HBCU landscape, what you like, and just Your standpoint.
I'll say this. I think that one thing that I have been seeing a lot that I think is a dangerous take and or perspective is people say that they say, hey, Coach Prime has given you guys the blueprint. Now you got to take it and run with it. And I say that's a dangerous perspective because there is only one Deion Sanders. Like there is only. I would be foolish to sit here and think that myself, Coach Wilson, Coach Oliver, Coach Pugh, any of the Meac coaches, any of the coaches in the SWAC, even like when I was at Alabama State, we were very, very careful to understand that yes, we had a former SWAC great as our head coach. Yes, we had a former NFL, a high level NFL player as our head coach, but we didn't try to make Eddie Robinson Coach Prime. I don't think Ed Reed is going to be Coach Prime. Like that man is one of a kind. So to say that we need to try to duplicate the way in which he did things, I think that is a mistake if people try to do that. I think you have to find out what your formula is. You got to find out what's your thing, what's your niche. You can't be, rest in peace to Mike Leach. Mike Leach never tried to be Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Mike Leach was Mike Leach. What's my man name out that's the head coach at USC now, Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is not trying to be Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. Lincoln Riley is doing things Lincoln Riley's way. So I think that each coach has to find out, each coach and each administration has to find out what works for them and, capitalize on the fact that now we have a light being shined on us. But I think you get yourself in trouble when you try to be something that you're not. And I think that's why, like, again, I got a tremendous amount of respect and bordering on admiration for the guy that I work with, who I consider, more than just a colleague, who I consider a friend or a brother, in life, not just in the profession, because like Coach Wilson is comfortable enough in his skin that he's gonna do it the way that he's had success all these years. And I think for me, excuse me, like it allows me to be who I am, and we're a great contrast to one another. And I just think that, again, I'm happy that people are now looking at HBCU football and HBCU sports and HBCUs in general. And I think that it's important now that we let our own individual lights shine. Something came out today, Something came out today where apparently, like the four conferences are going to work together, kind of to collaborate in terms of advancing HBCUs and so on and so forth. And I think it's a great idea. But again, I think we also have to be careful not to lose, quote unquote, lose our identities, because the CIAA isn't the SWAC. The Meac isn't the SWAC. The SWAC isn't the CIAA. Like, each conference has its own little, little niche. Yeah, it has its own identity. And I don't think you want to lose that. Like, I think what makes Morgan great is what makes Morgan great. What makes Howard great is what makes Howard great, and so on and so forth. And I don't want to be Jackson State. I don't want to be Alabama State. I want to be the best Morgan State that we can be. So I think for us, it's important that, I know that we're going to continue to do things the way we do it. If you look at our signing class and our recruiting class and all the guys we're bringing in, whether it be high school, JUCO, transfer portal, whatever, I put something out the other day, like, we are building this team in our image. Tough guys, smart guys, good, athletic guys that are going to buy in and be all in. And I think that, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think eventually you'll see what our plan is, and you'll see it start to come to fruition. And like I say, I'm excited to be at Morgan State. I'm excited to be a part of, the entire HBCU culture. And I just hope that people continue the people who don't know about it, I hope people continue to educate themselves. That's what I really want. Like, don't go out and repeat or repost something you saw somebody else say. Man, take your time to educate yourself. Like I said, one thing that I think that whole Eddie Robinson, Deion Sanders situation brought to light for me is a lot of people just don't know. People are so. I got a buddy, man. Shout out to my guy, Coach Butch. He coaches over at UDC. He calls it the virus to go viral. And I love that phrase because people are so. It's like more important to be first than it is to be right. And I just really hope that when it comes to HBCUs, people will really take their time to learn about, what goes on inside HBCUs and the history of HBCUs and so on and so forth, versus just being quick to post something, to get a reaction.
That's real. And I like that because when you really listen from a totality standpoint, okay, this is what it is from a standpoint of winning, losing, whatever. Your actual fanship, it governs over everything. And I think, bro, like people like yourself, the trenches, So I think it's so important that you've been to SWAC, you've been to Meac, you know everything. And I love your perspective because your perspective is true. And your true perspective is what we should use as a baseline to know what we actually are doing. So, me personally, I wish you were in the SWAC, but you're not. That's okay. But I love where your perspective comes from because your perspective comes from truth. You played, you coach, That's it. It's nothing else that comes from that.
No doubt.
That's it.
No doubt.
So as we land the plane on this show, we almost been 2 hours, and I appreciate you so much for your time, bro. Anything you want to impart the listening audience on as we go forward?
Man, I think we covered a lot throughout the show, and like I said, for me again, it's just, man, I said it on my Facebook page. If we can get as many people that had posts, comments, retweets, reposts, think pieces, anything on the entire Coach Prime situation, if we can get those people to, whether you went to a HBCU or not, give to your local HBCUs, attend the game, support HBCU students and student athletes in some type of way, I think we'll be in good shape. And I'm not saying, like we all have a buddy of mine text me, we were on the show, he asked me, hey, are you watching the Florida State-Oklahoma game? Florida State is his team. And I think we all have a team that we grew up rooting for. If you weren't in the Deep South or you didn't have a relative that went to an HBCU, for the most part, you don't consider an HBCU your team unless you went there. And I think like now is as good a time as any to change that. Let's support our local HBCUs. Again, whether it's your alma mater or whether it's just the one that's closest to you in proximity or whether it's your favorite one for whatever reason, man, support them. And let's see if we like we always say, support Black businesses. And I saw some people, not gonna get into all who owns HBCUs and so on and so forth. All I know is it's a lot of Black students and black employees, coaches, whoever in those universities that can really use your support. And let's try to do it as best as we can and see what comes from it.
Perfect. So there it is, man. So support HBCU sports, support HBCU perspective, and I want to say this, Tone. And you can chime if you'd like to. Don't support like just bashing what this is. Like I've seen a lot of people trying to talk about this situation, and it's just like you got no perspective. And I won't name a content creator, but people bigger than my channel. It's just like, bro, keep the main thing the main thing. Let's keep football, basketball, and perspective intact. And that leads to like the best thing of what this is. So I just want to just give a thank you for everybody who's been this, and Tone, you always been a part of what I've been doing, and so you giving perspective because again, speculation is speculation. You in the trenches.
It's dangerous, man.
Huh?
I said speculation is dangerous.
Speculation is very dangerous. So I love what you bring to every time you talk because you know what this really is. So and as we peace out, you got anything you want to give to the listeners, bro?
Oh man, just keep your eye out for Morgan State University football. Like I said, we got something special brewing here, and I think that people are going to see exactly what we have cooking up here in the very near future.
Perfect. So for the listeners who want to know how to follow you, where would they follow you?
Oh shoot, I got it. Okay, so on Facebook, obviously, it's Antone Sewell, just my first and last name, the same way you see it on the screen. Twitter is Coach Sewell _MSU, and Instagram is Coach Sewell _Morgan State.
So you guys have it from the roots to tutors. So thank you so much, Coach Sewell. So I want to have you back to talk about the season impending when it comes up. Cause the SWAC, the Meac, the landscape will change. So again, fourth time on this channel. I appreciate you, bro. So anything else you want to play out before we peace out?
No, man, I appreciate you having me. And I didn't realize we had been on as long as we were, but I mean, to me, that just lets me know that we were having good conversation and good dialogue. I appreciate everybody that logged in and chimed in with comments / questions. Like I said, I'm an open book. I try to be as transparent as I can be without giving away too much. But at the same time, like I said, man, I look forward to the next time we can do this.
Perfectly stated. So y'all hit the like button when we out. Thank y'all so much for being a part of this. And until next time, we are out. Peace.